All right, here we are.
Here we are.
We finally made it.
We did.
So I probably already said this in the intro, but EY Washington here with
Hello.
me, which is kind of exciting because this is the first time I'm recording a pod in person with someone. So the reason why we're finally here is because we had a lot of technical difficulties that we had to solve through horror.
We did, and it was successful.
And when I finally gave up,
yes, yeah. In fact, we sat down and I believe my esteemed colleague's words were, "You know what? I just got to give up." And I was like, okay. And I started putting my headphones on. I look over and she was fiddling with the computer. I was like, what the hell is she doing? And out pulls the very cord we needed.
And I was like, it was Mercury and Gemini. Basically, the moon's last aspect was a trine to Mercury and Gemini. And I was like, it has to be around some tech shit. It has to be.
Yep.
And there it was. And also the signifier for the second house was Jupiter and Pisces in the fourth. So I was like, it's probably in this room.
Yes.
Like it has to be here.
Yep.
I mean, sorry, in the fifth. Anyway, here we are. It is Sunday, June 27th at 5:48 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we are here to give you a July 2021 forecast.
Truly.
Truly. We are drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to light a joint. This is for fun. And so, yeah, I haven't been doing episodes because I've been just kind of overwhelmed, but EY and I have been hanging out a lot, and we kind of recorded an impromptu, like drunk, kind of like fucked up episode.
Yes, it was giving very much like drunk history on the on the History Channel. It was.
I don't remember what we even talked about. I truly can't remember.
I remember laughing a lot. I remember getting up to pee.
I remember my neighbor like sending me a wall of texts being like, "You're too loud,"
and it had been going on for like more than 5 minutes, and we were having
like a whole hour.
We were having such a good time. Neither of us noticed the wall of text.
No,
on your phone.
Felt bad. I felt really bad. But anyway, we're here.
We're here to talk about July.
We're here to talk about July. So yeah, when we were doing that episode, I was just like, this is so much fun. We need to do something regularly together. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm always kind of anti-forecasting. I much prefer to do retrospectives, honestly.
Yes.
But I just felt like this would be a fun thing that we can do together. So we're trying it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're trying it out. We're going to see what July has to offer.
We both have our Earth embers in front of us.
Look. We do. Mine has crumbs in the
Yours looks a lot better. Look, literally my pages are completely out. All of 2020 is like not
just ripped out.
It's just that I flipped through them so many times that they just got brittle. Essentially.
I love that. It's like when I was so a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I used to be in seminary school, and they used to say that if your Bible wasn't, flipped and tattered and torn, then you hadn't been using it. So
holy shit, you were in seminary school?
I was, yes, I was. My major.
What in the Jupiter?
What in the Jupiter the first? My area of study was liturgical music or worship music.
Oh, wow.
And like the history of that, and particularly like looking at like the history of it, but also like with the intention of becoming a liturgical minister.
That is so Saturn in the fifth.
It really is. That like Jupiter Saturn trine is like, let's make fun music. If I'm remembering this, if my memory is memorying well, I believe it's Al-Kabisi that said if you have Venus applying to Saturn, in a supportive aspect, it insinuates that you'll create like mournful tunes and religious music if Jupiter is applying to Venus.
Oh, wow.
No, obviously Jupiter would apply to Venus, but you know what I mean. And so it's so interesting. I remember reading that and going, oh my God, that's what I was going to totally do in seminary school, was to make both worship music, but also funeral dirges. So
wow.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
I'm glad you're not doing that.
Me too.
Do you think that's like distracting those papers?
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
I don't think so. Like the sound,
no.
You haven't noticed? Okay. So EY and I became friends over Twitter.
Yes.
Over the past, I don't know, not
Oh,
year.
yeah.
It hasn't been a full year.
It hasn't been, but it's been. I'm like, when did I come? When was it?
It's probably been like the past 6 months.
Yes, it's been at least since the the great Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, and I only know it's that because that was the advent of when I went on Clubhouse.
Okay, I was like, yeah, I know Clubhouse brought us together.
That messy, terrible
that fucking app.
Yes,
in the best ways though. Like so we became close there, and then we both live here in LA, and EY came and brought me cookies one day.
Yes,
and
we were on Clubhouse. We were on Clubhouse, and I came on in a bombastic Jupiterian distracting sort of way, and I was like, "Hey, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, but what y'all have for dinner?" Everyone starts to talk about their different foods and things, and Kirah was like, "Oh, I want someone to bake for me. I want yummy baked goods, foods and things." I was like, "Oh my gosh. Well, where do you live? I'll send you some baked goods."
Yes.
So 3 months later,
container.
Yeah, yes. 3 months later, colored people time notwithstanding, I made. What did I make? I did.
They were like
thumbprint cookies.
Yeah, with like rosemary
and lemon and blueberry compote. That's what I did.
Yeah, it was really. They were bomb.
That's what I did.
So tell us a little bit more about you, your practice, like your astrology career. I don't want to say career, but like journey.
Absolutely.
And also SMR.
Yes. Okay. So my SMR is I am a Libra rising with Venus in Sagittarius. My sun is in Scorpio and my moon is in Capricorn.
Wait, say it again in the SMR order, please.
I just jumped to the good stuff. I'm
Exactly.
I'm a Scorpio sun, Capricorn moon, and Libra rising.
Thank you. That's like the only way my brain can I know your chart, but I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's the whole reason behind SMR is to standardize the order. EY. Which I did not do.
You said, tell me your SMR. I said, here's my ascendant and my ascendant ruler.
Yeah, I like to say SMR plus L1, which is the Lord of the First. So tell us about you.
Absolutely. So my name is EY, that's my SMR. And I came into astrology or the astrology that I practice, or at least it's the most inspiring and creative and interesting for me, is the kind of astrology that describes your placements as a sort of ambiance, a weather, a condition. And it's in that condition that we rise, rest, and fall into our becoming and our unbecoming, which is so I think descriptive of our experience of being human and living. And so my particular approach, or what I kind of merge it with, is this queer notion of failure, which is to say, how can we find alternative routes to being in the world that are both collaborative and creative and sustainable. And so sort of merging the weather of the astrology and the sort of unsolicited advice that the notion of queer failure can give, so that we can move through that weather in a way that is mindful that it's not just us moving through, but moving through with the world. And so anyway, that's kind of the approach I take with my consultations and with clients and shit posting on Twitter and all those sorts of things.
I love that. And part of something I love about you is that you're such a great example of someone that embraces a fallen planet in a way where it's I always tell clients, you need to lean into your fallen planets, lean into your detrimented planets, lean into the mess, because we all are messy. And when you're openly messy, it gives other people the opportunity. No, I'm not calling you messy, but
I am messy.
You are messy.
I am a mess.
You're messy, but in the most lovable way. It's not messy where I'm God damn it, I can't be around certain messy people,
Yes,
it's not like that.
It's not messy like oil spill messy. It's messy ooh, there's confetti and glitter everywhere.
That's exactly it. So EY, do you mind if I talk about your Mars?
Yes.
EY has
I thought you were going to say
amongst this beautiful mutual benefic mutual reception with Jupiter and Libra in the first house. And a whole sign. Is it whole sign? Yeah, whole sign. It's not by okay. Whole sign sextile to Venus in Sagittarius in the third house. So I just love that, like, benefic mutual reception. It's that in itself is messy because like, you know, benefics are
messy,
especially when they're like
together,
especially when they're
they
like
can see each other.
Exactly. Not only see each other, but like ruling each other. It's like there's no rules there when it comes to, like, you know, Venus is not going to like impose rules on Jupiter that are like, you know, Jupiter doesn't love Libra because it's Saturn's exaltation, and it is a lot about rules and all that. But like, you know, Venus is in Sag with like, ruled by Jupiter being like, I don't know, have fun, girl. Like
truly. Well, and additionally, my Venus is out of bounds. And so she's really out here.
Oh, yes, she is.
Like, what's the sign? which is perfect. But we in our impromptu 2 a.m. however late it was podcast, we were describing birth charts in the context of like party boats.
Oh my god, that's right.
And I was saying that like I have Jupiter and Venus both like co-captain of my ship.
It's like getting fucked up.
just with a cocktail in one hand.
A joint in the other. Like they're just like cracking up, barely looking at where they're going.
Meanwhile, Mars is at the top in that little like, it's called the crow's nest. In the crow's nest. It's just,
Mars in Cancer, everyone.
Yes, in the 10th, conjoined to the ascendant.
Third second.
Just yelling. Just
naked
and yelling. And pointing. Beware of the horizon, and everyone's like, just ignore her up there.
Everyone's just like, I know she's loud, but you know what? Jupiter's just like, just turn the music up. It'll drown Mars out. Just let her yell. She'll eventually. The sun will set. Calm down.
Meanwhile, my Moon and Saturn are like, if they don't get this damn boat to its destination, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do.
Yeah, Saturn and Aquarius, Moon and Capricorn are just like just trying to keep it the fuck together.
Truly. And then Mercury's just running around the boat. Just running around the boat, sometimes even diving in the water. It's a thing.
Mercury is did you hear what Moon said about Mars?
Yes, the queen of cheese man is just running around and spreading all the gossip. Also, interestingly enough, I have
Mercury and Sag, by the way.
Yes, Mercury.
Which we both have. So
yes.
Hence what you're witnessing right now.
Yes. And additionally, I have Algorab on the ascendant. So an ill wind.
Ooh.
Which adds to the mess in a totally
just
different
mess all
way.
around. And you got
all around.
And UI like allows, it allows your mess. I see your mess. I hear your mess. It makes my mess feel so welcome.
Yes. Well, what is a detrimented planet? I have 3 and they're all loud and very want attention and get the attention. But it's like, what is a detrimented planet if not mess? But like, you have a mess. Now what? Right? Like
what do you do with it?
Totally. And you can do something with it, like, which is, I think, speaks to, all of my cardinal angles, just yelling all the time with planets there and all the planets yelling. But it's like, this didn't go the way it's supposed to go.
Right.
Now what?
Exactly.
And I think in addition to detrimented planets, I think debilitated planets, which is the same thing, but I think like retrograde planets and those sorts of things, many under the beams planets, those conditions.
12th house planets.
Listen, name
name an affliction.
Name an affliction. I've like the like back in the day when they had those the rag and bones man. I'm just like, name an affliction. I'll give you an option. With my little approach. But thank you. That's so sweet.
No, I mean, what you guys you'll understand as we go through this episode, and if you don't already know EY or of EY's work, is that EY is just a joy and literally benefics embodied or incarnate or what's the word I'm looking for? Those are good enough words. Incarnate is a good one. Good job, Kirah. But anyway, it's just always such a joy. It's always such a joy. So
thank you. One thing
for someone with Saturn in the 5th house in a night chart, you're somehow such a joy.
Listen, you know why? It's because my benefics are blatant Saturn. They're really, Jupiter is or Saturn, I mean, is bona fide by Jupiter, and also bona fide by Venus. Venus. And so he's just in the bottom of the ship. And
in the 5th house is like pleasure. It's just like
in the party house.
Be really very serious about pleasure,
having fun. Exactly. 100%. It's so funny. I don't know. Well, I'll let you tell me if this is not appropriate for me to tell. But when the pandemic happened and we got our checks.
Yes, you can say that.
Okay. I was so concerned about my friends who I love so dearly and like me, are whores. And I was concerned for them, and I didn't want anyone to get COVID. It was when we knew a lot less than we know now.
Yeah.
And I spent a significant portion of money on buying them sex toys so they could stay home.
And that's stimmy for your friends' sex toys.
And I sent them all across this great nation. Well, arguably great, but I sent it across this great piece of land we have to live on. And I said, please stay inside and get your pleasure from yourself.
That is that is ultimate Saturn in the 5th. Like, yeah, daddying your friends about their pleasure.
Truly. I was like, listen, here's what, I was talking to a client yesterday about Saturn, what I think about Saturn. I think Saturn is so bright and indicative of like what is permissible and what is allowable. There's a wonderful talk by, I believe his name is Jeffrey Drawer. I believe how you pronounce it. If I mispronounced it, my apologies. But something he said that I love, he said, Saturn is the planet that says no, but means yes. And I think Saturn, in addition to my thought I just gave, I think Saturn illuminates what's possible and what's permissible. Or sorry, not possible, what's permissible, what's allowable. And by isolating what those things are, we can find a thing to what is possible, right? I think that's how Jupiter and Saturn work together.
Yeah.
And so it's just like at that time, I remember feeling so, which I believe was around the ingress, maybe. But listen, my rule. If there's not a chart for me, I don't talk about it because I'll misquote it. I was out here spreading. I was out here spreading the good news of Toni Morrison's great Virgo Mercury in the 10th house. That's not what she got. Miss Ma'am got Aquarius in the 10th. it was a whole thing. But anyway, in that same vein, it's like I just felt this urgency to be like, listen, so we can't go outside and we can't be fucking around with nobody, like how we used to be fucking around with nobody, somebody's other bodies,
like the ways we're accustomed to.
We're gonna unaccustom, relate to our bodies without other bodies. Here's a glass dildo. You're welcome. And so
your gift, you're a gift to your friend.
Listen.
Well,
none of them said thank you, but that's okay.
Rude, ungrateful. Let's hop into this forecast. I'm like staring at the chart of the moment. Well, this was 10 minutes ago, but let's share screens and look.
Lovely.
So yeah, we're looking at this chart of the moment. It is June 27th. The moon is void AF. Hopefully this recording, records.
Yeah, that's what we want. We need mama to get to Jupiter.
We do fast. Have like 3 back. Like we have 3 recorded. It better fucking work.
Yes, it will.
But let's look at July 1st.
Perfect. Let's do it.
So let's do 6 a.m. I like a sunrise chart. Same. Okay. So Aries moon. Okay. So basically like we're in Cancer season, full on at this point. And Cancer season lasts until what, the 21st?
Yeah,
20. Yeah, 23rd. Oh my God, 22nd. And then we enter Leo season. So yeah, we're firmly in Cancer season, and then we enter July 1st with the moon in Aries. Which some of my favorite people are Cancer suns with moon in Aries. Yeah, it's just such a good combo.
It really is. It's like something I was yelling about on Twitter was that like we're allowed to be, and of course on Mars and Cancer will say this, but we're allowed to be martial about our care.
Yes.
And there's something about Cancer signs with the moon in Aries that understand that so deeply.
Yes.
And they I don't know, my experience, they tend to carve out or the way in which they bring about their care is like the moon digging trenches and creating the encampment with which the care occurs. And it's so rich, and it's lovely that the June 1st chart has that energy. Or sorry, July. Yeah. It's like a Juneteenth on the mind.
Okay.
That's why.
Understandable.
Listen.
Cool. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So we start out the month with this quarter moon, basically closing quarter. Mercury is finishing up, like finally ahead, moving forward after that retrograde. It's still slow and running into that square with Neptune. So when do we clear that? Let's see.
Clear that.
Because Mercury's so slow right now, but it takes like a full, okay. So yeah, we don't clear that until like a weekend to the month, which the moon will come through and sort of ping that square as Mercury clears it. But yeah, do you have thoughts about this Mercury Neptune square? Because it's kind of been like a theme of the Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, well, I think that of course, I think it's going to sort of illuminate the ways in which we articulate perception and like world build in that way. The way in which we use language to create a vehicle with which an idea or the spirit of an idea is sent forth somewhere. And so with this particular square, I think it's really interesting to see I don't know, the poesy of people's writing and the way like people TM are engaging in these really rich figures to explain or do these ideas. But I think what can be tricky about expository language is sometimes we will use expository language to hide some really heinous things. And so that's where that square, I'm like, I wonder how that's gonna relate. But just be mindful of like a Virgo of the impact of language. That don't be distracted by pretty words.
Yeah, that's like, I just keep thinking every time there's a Mercury retrograde, there's some sort of like drama pops off on Twitter. And yeah, this one, like I think about the ones that happened in Pisces with Neptune and how there was always some drama. The ones in Sag square Neptune. And so, yeah, this one, it just makes me think of exactly that, like the power of language and how easily distorted it can become, how easily, I don't know. It just like, I just keep having this imagery of just like, you know, Mercury in Gemini and at home and in its, you know, diurnal domicile, triplicity, you know, like Mercury really does like Gemini, right? But it's in the square with Neptune, like usually this retrograde Mercury and Gemini is like, okay, Mercury's at home. It's reorganizing the home space, right? It's like going through, it's cleaning shit out. But this time Mercury had not just like this retrograde in Gemini, but it's co-present with Rahu. So the North Node, there was a fucking eclipse as Mercury was like kazemiing the sun, you know, aligning with the sun. Like the Mercury's been fucking put through the ringer during this transit,
and in more ways in more ways than Mercury is used to being put through the ringer.
And it's like I feel, to me, the imagery I get is like thinking, okay, like, you know, things are kind of intense. This is Mercury, you know, I'm at home, I'm here for a while, like, you know, I'm planning this extended stay. I want to take my time and really, you know, dig through stuff. But you know, maybe like I'll take some shrooms a little bit, you know, like I just want to have a day where, you know, or maybe it's like a little acid or something, and then accidentally like triple doses itself.
Yes.
With like the, you know, the North Node eclipse on top of it as it's like media. Like, can you imagine how trippy that would have been, having this like meeting with the sun, this like union with the sun during like, but the moon comes in and is like, I'm eclipsing y'all.
Yeah, the moon came and said, rah, 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 rah.
Yes, like, and you're like already tripping and you're just like, yeah, the moon just like pops in and it's like, fuck, oh my God. And then you're also square Neptune. So like the trip is just like going on forever.
Yes, 100%. Something you said that's sprung something in my head also was this idea of just like I'm thinking about this square in the chart that we're looking at. It's an overcoming one, right, from Neptune. And I'm thinking about, it's a lyric, not a lyric, it's a line from a monologue that George Bernard Shaw wrote. And it's right before they condemn and burn Joan of Arc at the stake, happy play. And in that line, she says, they told me to beware of your words and their flattery and your charity. And I can't help but think about the ways in which, everything that glitters isn't gold. And to be like, I know as you were talking about Gemini, I'm thinking about, Mercury in Gemini versus Mercury in Virgo very much feels like a distinction between high stakes, like what are low stakes, what's low stakes, what's high stakes, what's impactful, what's not impactful. And that when Mercury is in Gemini, there is something about this energy that like information, language, how we engage with people through exchanging spirit. It needs to be light enough to move through high and low places, through the light and the dark, through the complicated and the trivial. And not to say, and that's not to say that Mercury, people with Mercury and Gemini aren't impactful or mindful of their impact with their language, but there's something about this transit to me that's saying, ooh, be mindful of that low stakes and that high stakes.
Well, it's like in Gemini, those exchanges can just get carried off with the wind, and Neptune comes in, not to mention this whole sign square with Jupiter and Pisces too, comes in and disseminates that. And it's just like, I'm either going to dissolve this into nothing, or I'm going to like multiply it into like, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people seeing it.
Absolutely.
And so like little bits of information can just like, especially with Rahu there, the North Node there, especially
increasing everything.
I mean, the sun sort of maybe hid a little bit of it, but now that the sun's in Cancer and like away from Mercury, it's like, Mercury kind of, I think this last kind of pass through the end of Gemini is going to, it's probably not going to make things clear until, it clears that final square with Neptune. But I think that final square might feel, especially now that Neptune's retrograde, might feel like some clarity or like a wrapping up of that story.
Absolutely.
And moving forward. And, just think about where Gemini and Virgo are in your chart. Those two houses, if you think about the whole sign houses that they correspond with, and how, the ruler of that house, Mercury, just got eclipsed, meaning like it sort of got knocked the fuck out. And it's like,
not even sort of, it got
knocked out, and like KO'd, like literally like in a K-hole. So like, you know what I mean? And it's like just coming out of it slowly coming out of it. And so those two areas of your life, are moving slowly. For me, it's my 4th and my 7th, and it's like, okay, definitely like relationships. Yeah, some shit happens. That's all I gotta say. Yeah. But
for me it's 9th and 12th, and I'm just thinking of
all the shit, right?
My relationship with my therapist. It's good to have one if you need it.
But also with astrology too. Like, yeah. So anyway, think about where that is in your chart, and how there really are like these new beginnings happening, but it's like Mercury still moving very slowly, especially at the beginning of the month. So it's just picking up speed. So see how things unfold.
Absolutely.
Basically.
And another thing that's like hitting my mind is that this notion that like, not notion, but the idea that there is the body of something, and that there's the spirit of something, and that sometimes, I think this is like an affliction of having a fire Venus, that sometimes I can feel very attached and very cognizant of the spirit of something, or the ideation of, or the idea of something, and idealize it, with complete disregard for how it actually is moving in the world and functioning in the world. And this Mercury is sort of giving that. And so be mindful that there is absolutely, ideologies and idealizations of things, but then they also have real human bodies, there, and to just be mindful.
Apply that to the astrology of like what parts of your life are ruled by Mercury.
Absolutely.
Because, if you're a Pisces or Jupiter rising, or sorry, Pisces or Sagittarius rising, your 7th house, other people in your life are represented by Mercury. So think about that. Mercury in a square with Neptune, other people, basically everything that EY just said, like that can be applied to your money. If Mercury rules your 2nd house, that can be applied to, your parents. If Mercury rules your 4th. So think about that.
Absolutely.
Well.
And keep in mind too, that like Mercury has his skin in the game in regards to that which is body, which we could say is lunar or nocturnal, and that which is solar, and diurnal, right? Because of Mercury's joy in the 1st. And so there's generally, I would imagine, a balancing between that with Mercury. But in this particular configuration, that might be not as I don't want to say compartmentalized, but that might not be as easy to articulate as it normally is.
Yeah. So Mercury finally breaks out of that exact square. It passes through that square by the 7th of July. And then it's kind of picking up speed at that point. Yeah. And enters Cancer very early on Monday, July 12th. I love Mercury in Cancer transit. I fucking love it.
It's so rich and it's so hot. I love working. So, and I'm gonna completely botch up the layers. I'm not gonna say it, but the layers of the ocean have 5 layers, and we're most familiar with the top layer because that's where we swim in whatever. And then, of course, if you're a marine biologist, and if you're not, and then we're most aware of the bottom layer. It's called the trenches, which is so funny to me. And I just think that's so interesting that those layers exist, and Cancer has 5 bounds, right? These unequal divisions of the sign. And so it's just so interesting that Mercury, when it literally dips into Cancer, it's on that twilight. Some of the image I have of with Cancer being Mercury being in Cancer, it's like on this floaty in the ocean. Just like, I don't have to get into the trenches with the malefic at the end of the sun until much later, but I'm gonna enjoy myself. Sorry,
what's the first bound ruler of Cancer?
That is a great question.
That's what I thought you were saying. I can look it up here.
Let me.
No, it's all right. I can literally pull it up so easily because I bookmark everything because my chart ruler is in Virgo.
I love it.
So it's Mars. Okay, so it's Mars and then Venus. The Jupiter bounds in Cancer are like especially juicy.
It's funny that it's Mars. And what would correspond to that top layer in the ocean? Only because it's giving Jaws, right? It's giving dana,
yes,
dana, dana,
I love that. I love that.
But what's nice is Mars is not aspecting Mercury at all, and neither is Saturn, so he's in the clear.
I love. Okay, so that early that morning, so we're really talking like Sunday night, July 11th. Especially for the West Coasters and people in like Asia, probably. No, I'm going the wrong way around the globe. Don't listen to me. Anyway, I'm just looking at this beautiful Moon Venus conjunction in Leo. That night that maybe it happens the night before. Maybe it does happen on that day, but maybe it happens on Sunday. But regardless, between Sunday and Monday, Mercury enters Cancer, and then the moon comes through Leo and lights up this Venus Mars conjunction, and we're both squealing because it's hot.
It's so hot. It's like this picture is like it's like post coitus. It's like Venus is applying to Mars. Well, it's truly pre coitus.
and this is like lubing up.
It truly is.
This is lubing up.
Venus is like, listen, normally I have to put on a show for people. But today, Mars, you're putting on a show for me.
Yes.
It is the show of foreplay. It is the show of sunafe, which is this sexy Greek word that means fucking. And adhere. I mean, not adhere. I mean, yes, adherence, but neighboring. They're so close to each other. It's sticky and it's hot and it's moist and it's Leo, which is
it's hot,
exciting.
and so Venus brings moisture. Mars is already hot, and in Leo it's just hot. You know,
no more heat.
Venus brings some moisture. Venus cools down Mars enough to, like, you know, make him perform for her, basically, but cools down Mars enough to, like, beg for it. But
like, no chafing, not here.
But the moon comes in and adds that additional moisture and cooling that needs to happen for this union. And I just love that the moon comes in and, like, adds that as this union is, like, happening. And will we be able to see this? They're about 30 degrees.
Yeah, so I think so.
At sunset, right?
So we should.
Let's see. Okay. Yes. Oh, I'm excited. So yeah, we should be able to see at sunset. Yes. Okay. This is sunset.
Yeah.
So around 8 p.m. Pacific, or whenever, I guess that would be 8 p.m. wherever, the sun sets, and you should be able to see the moon and then Mars and Venus in the sky, like, pretty bright.
And it's gonna be giving, like, you're in your apartment, you're in your high-rise apartment, you're about to, you know, close the drapes for the evening, you're gonna make a meal, watch TV, whatever. And as you come to the window, you're gonna look up, look up, because this exact conjunction, almost exact conjunction, between Mars and
it's so beautiful. So this is happening at 19 degrees of Leo. So if you have any planets or points at 19 Leo,
that's my lot of fortunates.
Ooh, hot.
Baby, I'm gonna get some mama want some money.
No, but if you have, I would say the orb would be anywhere between, like, 16 and 21, 22 degrees of Leo, or any of the fixed signs, really. This conjunction is going to be happening there. And what I really love about this is, again, when we're talking conjunctions, we're talking two planets, even just in aspect to one another. There's a coming together or an interaction happening between certain areas of your life that these planets represent. Like, the planets are basically like avatars for these areas of your life. You can also think of them as, like, just responsible for certain areas of your life. So, and responsible in particular for providing resources, and to, like, you know, like, make those conditions, like, as good as possible.
100%. Yeah. In addition, to add to that beautiful point, also the signs that those planets rule, the other signs, right? That the issues and matters of those houses are going to show up wherever, you know, Leo shows up for you as well. So, you know, Demetria George, you had a wonderful example that I love. She said that in wherever she lives, I believe it's Oregon, that they do this, like, recycled fashion show situation, and that they have to use whatever's in their box to make their garment or whatever. And so when a planet rules as in a house and then has another house that it rules, like most of them do, except the sun and the moon, right? That they have to use the tools of that house to bring upon these other matters. And so it's really cool. This, like, this union is going to be a union, and it's
matters. Like, so I'm thinking especially the fixed rising people. So people who are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius rising. This is the rulers of two of your angles meeting together. So, like, bridging together you and another person. If you are, I forgot to say the other fucking rising signs is also aspect. Okay, so the fixed risings, this will happen in angular houses for you. But also people who are Aries or Libra rising also get affected by this, because Venus and Mars, you know, are the planets that rule those signs. So think about it that way. And even if you aren't those rising signs, like, look at where Aries, Taurus, Libra, and Scorpio are in your chart. And basically those 4 areas of life are, like, coming together wherever Leo is in your life, in your chart. So I know that's a lot, but for some, but on top of that, I just want to quickly note, we have this really cute mutual reception happening with the luminaries.
We do.
With, the sun in Cancer and the moon in Leo, which, they can't see each other, but that only happens right after the Cancer new moon or right before the Leo new moon.
Yep.
So I love that when they just are like in each other's signs, and it's like, I don't know, there's something cute about that.
Yeah, it's kind of, it very much reminds me of those moments when you, it's like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, but they both know they exist and they both know they're there.
Yeah.
And so it's that journey sort of starting and all of that, emerging incarnate potential stuff. If that's a conviction you have, sort of happening and then relying on each other for that to happen is really poignant.
Yeah, it feels so, I don't know, planets in mutual reception with one another that can't see each other by traditional aspect. It's always such an interesting case to me, because I feel like it works, but it's like they don't really know how it works. It's just like, I don't know, it just like somehow works out, sort of thing.
And like in addition to that, there's something about that their relationship that's very much what's a good example? It's like it reminds me of theater in that, like, there are performers on stage doing their job, but there's technicians and crew doing theirs. And even though they can't see what the other is doing, it creates the show.
I was going to say, it feels very felt, but not seen. It's like, it's happening, but you just can't see it. Yeah,
it creates my experience with other folks who have that particular beautiful configuration. It tends to work like it creates an ambiance that's both so, in this case, so lunar and so solar in a very yummy, lively sort of way.
Yeah, I love it. Especially all these, like all the planets in these two signs too. Not all of them, but like all of the, you could say personal plan. I don't know what, but also on top of that, we just have so many like planetary, like coming together.
We do.
Because we also have, as soon as Mercury enters Cancer, it starts to apply to trine Jupiter and Pisces. And so I really love this too, because again, for all the mutable risings, Gemini, Virgo, Sag and Pisces risings, this is the ruler of all four, the rulers of all four of your angles, meeting in this really beautiful trine to one another. That it's just like, I just am really excited for I'm excited for this period of time. So I feel like it's going to be a sort of like, things happening sort of moment for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I think additionally, it's going to be such a contrast to the other aspect we were referring to with Neptune and Mercury, that like as soon as they dip into Cancer, and then an aspect, its exaltation Lord, right? I think it's going to be a period of time when Mercury is going to be like, Jupiterian clarity, which seems like an oxymoron, but it isn't.
And it's again, because they're in water signs too, it's felt. It's like this, to me, like I picture this as like they the image that comes to mind is like a barbecue, or like just like a summer, like, lakeside, you're at the lake all day or something, or you're at a barbecue and you just have this like moment of nostalgia that like, and maybe like memories that just like something clicks for you, and you're just like, whoa, like, holy shit. I just realized something that made X, Y, and Z like come together for me in this like beautiful way. Like it feels, Mercury in any water sign is like considered mute, or just like not, doesn't speak really in terms of like traditional means of communication. It's a lot more lyrical. It's a lot more just nonverbal communication.
And with that trine to Jupiter, I think what I'd add to that is like Mercury is going to get an element of like like I think of two images are coming to mind. The first image is Mercury as a not sonar. What's underwater radar? Is it sonar?
I think it is.
Water R? I don't know what it is.
No, sonar. Yeah, sonar.
What's the one in the sky? What's the air
radar?
one? Okay.
No.
I'm not a scientist, clearly, but but Mercury is going to be able to go into these watery spaces and be able to articulate the shape of something, to be articulate how far away it is, and the Jupiterian piece is adding a depth, but also the second image is now coming, this Xavier with Cerebro moment of like, yes, by myself I'm this amazing, mercurial telepath, but with Jupiter's trine, I'm connected to Cerebro and the whole ass ocean. And so it's like
you're in tune with all the fucking whales. You can hear the whales talking, you can hear the school of fish over here talking. Like it's very much giving like Dory, like whale talk across oceans, like literal oceans. And so I love that for Mercury as this liminal character. I love, it's so hot, especially once the moon pops into Cancer and applies to the sextile Mercury. So they have this mutual reception. It's not mutual reception, but it's reception. Is it mutual? It's mutual reception. Okay, so on the 13th of July, the moon in the middle of the night will enter into Virgo and start to form a mutual reception sextile with Mercury in Cancer. So that's moon in Virgo, Mercury in Cancer. And then with that, before it even hits Mercury, it's opposing Jupiter in Pisces. It's just so lovely. Sexy. I have like a thing for moon in Virgo. It's one of my favorite placements. It's, my 7th house is Virgo, so I love a luminary and they're lighting it up. And moon has triplicity in earth signs in night charts, correct? So
absolutely. And to that, I think we had talked about Mercury, according to the tradition, Mercury having a difficult time articulating in water signs. But I think this sextile is going to afford Mercury the steadiness that Virgo is giving the moon. And the moon is going to sextile Mercury and say, how can we collaborate together? How can I take your resources in Cancer, and how can you use the resources in Virgo so that we can articulate this Jupiterian sonar that you're feeling, that feels so embodied and also life-giving. Like I'm looking at this, like the way in which language can create life. Like I think about like one of the things I love, not my Jupiter gassing you up, but the way in which you begin each podcast by reminding your guests about why we've gathered together in the first place, because you bring something so rich in your thing together, and that gives life in folks and life in people. And it's so benefic. Not your but it's I find that same energy is kind of happening here as well.
Thank you.
Of course. Oh my gosh.
I want to not to copy Chris, but this is an election that I found for this month. I don't know if Chris has a similar one. I don't know, but this is one I really love, especially for money. Like if you need money, and the reason is because so this election, it's 4 a.m. Los Angeles. July 13th, 2021, 4:00 a.m. I would really say like 3:58 or something. I would maybe go back a couple minutes, because it's you could probably even go back even more to get the moon closer to the IC. So maybe I would, and then Jupiter on the midheaven. Can we get that?
I think we can.
I'm trying to see okay, there we go. Oh no, but we can't get. No, I want the IC in Virgo, but here we go. This does it. Okay. So depending on where you are, maybe you may or may not be able to get it this precise, but this is I'm really into this chart. So and I don't know if I'm going to use it for anything. I've like the things I was going to use it for, I'm like, am I going to use whatever? Maybe I'll like send out a newsletter or something. Because the thing is, it's the middle of the night. So depending on where you are, you may or may not be able to get this. I think if you're on the East Coast, you probably won't, because the moon won't be in Virgo. Maybe. but 3 hours earlier, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's been.
And yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Can I tell you what I think is so hot about this chart?
Tell me what you think, and then I'll tell you. Well, yeah, or should I tell you why I like it?
Yeah, I want to hear you. Oh, yeah, you go.
But
You
don't
go.
forget.
I'm gonna remember.
Okay, so I love this chart because we have.
I'm gonna laugh when you say what I was gonna say.
The ruler of the first is Mercury in the second, which is not like great. You don't really love the chart ruler in the dark house, but it is trine the midheaven. And so it does sort of help pull it out of the dark in some sense, and make it directly correlated to, what's happening elsewhere. It does have that sign-based trine, and it is like a degree-based trine too with Jupiter, which rules 2 of the angles. I just love a Mercury-Jupiter aspect, sextile, trine, opposition, whatever. I love a Mercury-Jupiter because it really brings together like those 4 houses.
Yep.
So yeah, we have that. I really love here the ruler of the first and the second. The ruler of the second being the moon, as sect light in a night chart. It's pretty close to Regulus. It's applying to oppose Jupiter in Pisces, which is right on the midheaven, on the 10th house side of the midheaven. We can still get the moon on the third house side, or sorry, on the 4th house side of the IC. And yeah, so we got the moon applying to Jupiter, but then right after that, it has that mutual reception sextile to Mercury. And it's like the ruler of the second, this is why I love it. The ruler of the second applying to the ruler of the first. So we got money coming directly to you. Yep. And it's being inflated by that Jupiter opposition too, which is just abundant AF. So yeah, and then we have that really beautiful applying conjunction of Venus and Mars in a night chart. So it's just like hot to me.
It's so hot.
Tell me what you think.
It's so hot. So this is how I had to figure out application and separation of the moon, because it made no sense to me until it did. And it's lunch. And when the moon is separating from something, she's leaving something, and a lunch has been packed.
Okay.
And then when she's applying to something, she's going to the schoolyard or whatever, and she's like, who can I trade my lunch with? Who can I take these things? And so what I love about this chart is that the moon is leaving this like this threesome, and in the threesome in the lunch from this Mars Venus Mars conjunction, she has chocolate covered strawberries, and she has a really nice dinner from a really nice restaurant, and some really good wine, or what have you. The water came out clear. It's just perfect. And she's going to go to the next planet she's applying to, which is Mercury, and bring all those good things. And so it's
first Jupiter actually, and then and probably Jupiter is like, just give me some of those cookies, I'll give you like all of this shit.
Truly, it's gonna be one of those, when you're on the at the schoolhouse back in the day, and someone would be like, oh, I have all of these vanilla wafers, my mom will give me a whole box, but I don't really want it because I don't want it. And now you have like your busted ass sandwich and a whole bunch of vanilla wafers. Exactly. And so it's absolutely and
then it's gonna have that trade with Mercury afterwards, and that mutual, like they're in each other's homes. They're looking out for each other. The only thing about this is like the sect part is like Mercury is, contrary to sect here, it's a morning star Mercury. And it's, a dark house Mercury. I think this is great for making like shop update. If you like sell shit and you're making shop updates, you want to blast a newsletter about something. This is a good chart for that, especially with the third house Venus Mars conjunction.
Absolutely. See, and I think sect notwithstanding, I think the fact that they're in each other's houses is like they're guests. It's like they're two sect for me sometimes feels very much like two friends passing in the night. But I think about anytime it's day and the sun goes into night and the moon, rules over, it's this peaceful transition of power, which is really lovely. And I think with this particular mutual reception, it's two friends that may pass in the night, but they're passing the night and then for a moment stopping, held, suspended to house sit for each other. And so it's like, oh, this is in this context, this is my friend. And so I know all the material shit that's in the grocery store. I know what kind of
and they both of their houses are pretty, they're both coming with a lot because they both just had an aspect with Jupiter.
Yep, they truly.
So they're like really excited to stay in each other's homes. Actually,
it's
like, what did Jupiter give you?
Really?
What did he give you? Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Absolutely.
What did you stock the pantry with? Jupiter goodies, juke juice.
Yeah, exactly. No, 100%. And it's not one of those like, you know, when you house it for someone, you know, the house looks haggard, you know, it's not like you know, an application from a, you know, into the sign of a malefic. It's like, oh no, I have some really yummy things. Jupiter gave me quite a bit, and I have quite a bit to share, which is, it's also just feels so Jupiterian. I'm curious in that particular respect, the ways in which this chart's also going to sort of reflect Jupiter's relieving, supportive freedom aspects, like this idea of yes, money, but the way in which financial relief can be relief and Jupiterian. And sometimes, you know, I think because it's Jupiter and we talk about excess, we often say like, oh, Jupiter and, you know, winning the lotto. But I think
we don't talk about how healing it is.
Exactly. Like how healing, like I want, this is gonna sound so strange, but I love reading ancient texts talking about what happened to my runaway slave, because Jupiter is always doing something very wily, and the slave is never truly freedom. I can't move. Jupiter cut me loose, from Beyonce herself, right? The lyric. And so I'm curious with this particular chart as well as to the way in which Jupiter will be or the gifts that Jupiter has given the moon and Mercury, how that's going to result in financial support, the word I like better with Jupiter is relief. Like, have you ever had a situation where, I have this happen all the time, it's like serendipitous and feels very Jupiter in the first, like the way I'll be like, oh my God, I just need $100 for like groceries, but I guess I'm gonna do Del Taco, and then I get a ping into my email and you know, but the direct deposit came just in time, or it came a day early. It's like, oh, I can buy groceries, I can buy, you know. And so I'm curious as to, in terms of lunches and stuff, right? I think about like what are those little lunches where you make stuff?
Lunchables?
Well, like, yes, Lunchables is it, but they also do like little pizzas. So sure, yeah, Lunchables. And the way in which like the excess of stuff in a Lunchable feels very Jupiterian to me. It feels like too much. I hated them. It was too, oddly enough for me as a kid. Like Lunchables were overwhelming to me, and they didn't taste very good. But like the way in which the Lunchables that Jupiter has given Mercury and the Moon, they'll be able to exchange and make a charcuterie board of relief. Just feels very hot to me. So I love this chart.
I love. Thank you. Yeah, I wonder if I came up with it or not. Because I do look at like charts like way ahead of time. Sure. I think I came up with it.
You do, and I love it.
But if not, Chris and Lisa did. But I think it was me.
Listen, it's all.
No, I want to look.
All brilliant people.
Okay, wait, let me look. Now I'm like, who came up with this one? I would imagine. Okay, let's look. It's July. Because I usually put it in my things, like I don't know. I'll keep looking, but we can keep talking. But yeah, this is good for people who sell shit, I think.
100%.
Especially for like email blast.
Because all of that, I'm again thinking about the like the menage a trois that the moon is leaving and going into Virgo with, and it's getting a little more the dryness of Virgo, and not dry like not funny, but dry like permanent, and or maybe not, well, permanence maybe might be a better word, but the moon is taking all of that fiery energy, and it's going to get now a stability it may have not had in Leo. I mean, the Leo is also dry too, but there's something really lovely and firm about about this moon in Virgo, in particular, in regards to how the moon is gathering and releasing all of these really lovely things. And so I think it's a lovely, lovely chart. Additionally, what's also really nice is that Venus and Mars in this chart will be steadily moving away from their opposition to Saturn. Now, normally that would be concerning to me, but I'm actually not concerned. One, because Saturn's retrograde,
and cadent in this chart.
But two, is that Saturn has his skin in the game in both of the signs involved with this opposition. And so while it normally oppositions can feel really galvanizing and like, you know, I used to describe oppositions to people. I'd say it's like when you come home, or you bought a new outfit, you went shopping, right? And you come home, or you go out to work, you go out somewhere, and you have this new outfit, and you know, in Spanish, when you want to premiere a new outfit, the verb they use is actually the verb premiere, which is so funny because we only think of it in movies in English. And you come to premiere this thing, and you look, you know, you're at Starbucks and you're picking up your cappuccino before you're going to work, and you turn on the corner and you look, and somebody else has the same exact outfit you have. And it's like there sometimes can be this tension of like, I think capitalism teaches us to have a tension of like, well, I'm hotter, I look better. And so, you know, planets in opposition, I think, tend to have this sort of like their gut reaction, at least, is to have this like combative, it's the two planets,
it's a face-off.
Absolutely, 100%. And so normally that would be a little concerning. However, I think it's going to be, you know, if I take it back to my little high-rise apartment analogy, I think it's going to be, you know, old and lovely Saturn looking up and going, oh, not them kids up there fucking again.
Yes, exactly.
You know, close your blinds. You know, he's
Saturn will be the one who takes its, like, if it's happening, you know, above or below him, he'll take his cane and bang on the floor, like, shut the fuck up.
Absolutely.
You've been fucking all night long.
And
like,
I just want to sleep.
Yes.
Because, you know, he's finally in his preferred, I mean, he's been there for a minute, but he's in his preferred domicile.
Like, no one else is here.
Truly.
Jupiter's coming back so soon. Let me get a couple more moments of peace.
Because this my messy ass little brother is going to show up in this and mess up my house. No, 100%. And it, you know, Saturn's nature is allegedly, I'm saying allegedly because I'm going to my Saturn return. Saturn's nature is allegedly, you know, tempered in Aquarius, and so I don't think it's going to be as bombastic as it could be if it was elsewhere.
Yeah,
or a different malefic. Also,
for the record, that was my election. I checked the Chris and Lisa one, and that one was mine.
Okay.
Unless they did it for this July forecast. I haven't looked at it yet, but I don't think so.
It came in my Patreon, but I didn't look
I haven't looked at it yet. Anyway, yeah.
It's a chart.
It's and I've just looked at the sunrise chart for that same day, and it's also not bad.
Lovely.
Ruler of the first and the third. Might not be. Yeah, I'm not. I still don't hate this.
Neither do I. And I think that Venus, I don't know. There's something.
You can make it. Sorry, I was going to say, you can also just make it a night chart. You can make it a night chart. You can put the sun below the ascendant, and still, and therefore, like, the ruler of the first and like the planets in the second are insect.
Yep.
And I still think it's a pretty good money chart.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and I think of like, I have my son in the second, and I'm so amazed to the point that my eyes roll at how the second house, and sometimes the eighth, I don't have anything in the eighth, so I can't speak to that, but I'll speak to the second, is that it can really feel like the doorman at a hotel, and that it's like money comes in and money comes out, and I can't tell it can't come in, and I can tell some things that can't come out. I can tell you what can't come in, but I can't tell you what can come out. And so there's there's like a revolving door situation, excuse me, that happens with the second.
You're giving me, okay, no, sorry, continue.
No, and those planets really act like that. And so with Mars and Venus there, it's a little bit, you know, like exhibitionist-y because of just the aspect they have.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a really good chart that if we take you know, angular, like if we think angular triads and how the succeeding houses support the angle, I think it's a really good supportive chart for the angle. And even in a day chart, I would say it's even still supportive in that those planets, I don't know, there's something about Venus and Leo that is very much, I don't know, we often say Leo in the stage and performing, but like so much of Venus's work is, I don't want to say performative. Well, performative is not a bad word. It's so, it creates an environment. And I am playing with this idea that Venus and Leo is actually asking you to to create the environment for her to be the audience and respond. And
I totally agree with that. I totally agree.
So there's something about, you know, there's a lyric from there's a lyric from an old musical that nobody cares about but me, and the lyric goes, don't talk of stars burning above. If you're in love, show me.
Wow.
And there's something about, and what's interesting about that is the lyricist Alan J. Lerner also had Venus and Leo when he wrote that lyric, and so did the playwright that wrote the play that inspired this musical, George Bernard Shaw, who I quoted earlier, also had Venus and Leo. And there's something about Venus and Leo, not Mercury, that all they had Mercury's in Virgo, which is interesting to me. But there was something about Venus and Leo that says, do not just give me words, give me action.
Yes.
Give me deed.
Show me.
And
it's like the sun wants to illuminate things.
Yep. And it's like Venus and Mars, they're even in a day chart. I would say that in the night chart, it would be a great, like, support system to the first. I think in a night chart, that's right. In a day chart, however, I think that Mars and that Venus are like, if you really love me, show me. If you really want money, show me.
Also just to say, they're both evening stars here.
So ooh, that's so hot.
It's hot, and it also tempers, even if this is a day chart, it sort of tempers it in a way too that just is like, we're not in a rush here.
Absolutely.
We're not in a rush.
Absolutely. And it's like oh, maybe it extends that show me to it's still dynamic, right? Because it's Leo and it's fixed Leo at that, but it's show me throughout the entirety of time.
Yeah.
You don't ever get a break. Like I think Morningstar planets, we were talking about this earlier, I think Morningstar planets have a tendency to like pepper and drizzle. Like when I had pizza last night, I really good pizza for my pizza spot. And I was like, oh, please put the arugula, and they were drizzling the arugula on my pizza. So yummy. And those are Morningstar planets. They drizzle things throughout the life. But the night planets, like, oh, put that oregano in the dough, in the cheese, on the toppings. And so them being evening star phase planets is so lovely because it's saying, show me throughout the life, saturate me with your actions.
Hell yeah.
And so it's hot either way. It's hot. It's given the hot girl summer.
Something you said earlier that I just like can't, I want to come back to.
Yes.
Was the hotel lobby thought about the second house. Because I'm like, that's the exit of hell. The second house is the second and eighth house axis is the gate of Hades. Yes. Check out the second, eighth house episode. It's wonderful. Bear River and Sam Reynolds. But yeah. And so that imagery, just like, I just got really excited about that, thinking about Venus and Mars about to leave that conjunction, like that, like they're about to have the look how close this is. They're fucking right now. It is like penetration has occurred. Exactly. And this feels like Venus on top to me. Oh yes, absolutely. She said, grind the pony, girl, show them how you ride it. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So yeah, this is happening. So by the time I'm like, when, because I'm like, are they still in the second house? Sorry, that's what it was exactly. By minute. Oh shit. Yeah, like that's it, right? So I'm like into so they're still in the second household sign after the acts occur, right as they start separating. And to me, that just the imagery is like them about to leave the hotel and like disheveled. Kind of like Venus can like barely walk, right? Okay. She's out there hobbling, dragging that leg. Yes, Mars is like basically drunk. He's like, asleep. Yeah, Mars, barely like not walking straight. But yeah, like I just love that leaving hell, like second house, that imagery. I love that. Yes, absolutely. It's the I think of those big revolving doors in New York City, right? Also, the revolving doors at BJ's, the restaurant. Hashtag not sponsored. I think of those revolving doors, and that's definitely happening here. They're sooner rather than later. Venus is gonna leave the hotel and leave Mars asleep. Yes, I love that. I just want to point out. So I really love this chart. For like sending an email as well, because you had the mutual reception between the first and the third here. I don't Yeah, I really preferred the Jupiter, like the moon applying to Jupiter and Jupiter in the 10th, but this is also really good for like sending an email. This one is like 5:45 a.m. In Los Angeles, and adjust for your local time and see if you can get it. But this is pre-sunrise, it's pretty bright, but it's before the sun passes the ascendant. And so you get the night sec team doing pretty well in this chart and pretty happy. So, and the moon's still applying to that sextile with Mercury.
Absolutely. And in this chart as well, Venus is ruling the 4th, Mars is ruling the 10th. And so this was really nice about that, particularly the 4th house piece and the IC being there, is that, I often think with the, if we do want to, turn the wheel, do derivative houses, the third from the second to me always feels like the bank. Remember at the bank, but feels like, I don't know, the Cash App, your PayPal with the money pending before you send it to the bank, maybe. And so Venus is ruling this 4th house. If we don't turn the wheel, if we don't turn the wheel and keep it regular, right? Venus is ruling the place where you make investments for the long term, as well as being a night chart, in her evening phase. And so there's something really, really nice about that. And then, Mars ruling the 10th, as well as the midheaven, speaking to this notion of how can I take those investments with my resources, right, from the 4th, right? How can I articulate something that speaks to the short term that occurs in the 10th and the long term that occurs in the 4th, that prepares myself, whether that be a business, whether that be your financial portfolio, whether that be your bank account, right? How can I prepare that to receive the value and richness and all those lovely words that only that can be invested in Venus's house, as well as burnt off when it needs to in Mars's house. And so that's very, very nice.
I love that. And I also love, the ruler. You're basically looking at the rulers of the 4th and the 5th, and also the 10th and the 11th coming together in the second house. So this looks like if you are someone who has a tight community that buys your products, especially if you're like handmade products, I'm thinking like if you have a community, like this is a good chart for kind of like pushing something out to the community.
It's a chart I made a little different.
Love it. I love it. And if you are on the West Coast, this is like bright and early in the morning for East Coasters. So this is a good one.
Absolutely.
Cool. Let's keep looking through this month. What else that so I guess the Mars shit happens in June. Like, is it still applying at the beginning? Did we not talk about that?
At the beginning? I don't think we did.
I just looked at June, not July. My bad. Hold on. Okay, so it's basically we totally skipped over Mars.
The Mars side.
It literally is July 1st.
We were excited about we were excited about that Mercury.
I'm just like, let's like forget about that happening. Sorry. Okay, so we totally skipped over this, but we rewind 2 weeks. Mars opposite Saturn perfects on July 1st, 2021.
It's really interesting. And again, that how I have to, because I'm a very visual. It depends on what I'm learning, but I'm very visual. And so right, this configuration is doing this thing, like right, because Saturn is retrograde. And so what's really interesting about this, and I often, or more often than not, describe retrograde planets like this, is that retrograde planets are like when you try to find your keys and you accidentally come into knowing with all of these different spaces and places in your home that you didn't think of doing. We did that before this podcast. Yes. You become intimate and you find things you didn't even know were lost and didn't even know need your attention. And the reason ancients were so, to me, it seems the reason that ancient astrologers were so concerned about retrograde planets wasn't so much that it was like retrograde equals bad, but that retrograde put into question whether or not the planet in question was going to accomplish whatever the fuck it was responsible for. And that became, a source of contention. And so it's interesting that it's not just like Saturn TM, but it's Saturn and retrograde TM in Aquarius opposing Mars, because I think it's going to add to that opposition and that I don't know. Sometimes I think I feel like Mars Saturn oppositions really feel like a pissing match, and it's very strange. But in this particular way, I think with this retrograde Saturn in particular opposing this Mars, that it's really going to be a question of, hey, Mars. You know, aspects are like neighborhood watch programs. They see something, they say something, and then if they connect, they do something. And so Saturn is seeing Mars in Leo, and it's saying, hey, I notice you're not being mindful of boundaries enough. I know you're not being mindful of discipline enough. I notice you're not being mindful of what you need to strip away so that you can add what you need. And I'm going to demand, maybe rebuke, maybe bully you into doing that. And so it's actually it's putting Mars in a position where Mars is bringing out. It's more I don't want to say more malefic, but it's, although by definition of maltreatment that's what it would be, but like it's bringing out its more, so it's more of its Saturnian side. And so it's really interesting that that's like what it's giving me, like Dom Daddy Top energy with Venus applying.
It feels very like bratty, like the Leo stuff being very bratty and being like, well, it's what I want, fuck you. And Saturn being like, honey, like you're obviously new here, sort of thing.
100%. And Venus being like, okay, boy, it's my turn.
Venus being like, Mars, we have plans.
We have a date, and you're not gonna let your a mean uncle run like this.
Yes, like take care of your daddy issues right now.
That's it.
We have a date. And I don't want this to ruin the mood.
Because also, like, if you think of the heptazone or the Chaldean order, right, you have Jupiter in between Saturn and Mars, and it's what's really interesting about that is, like, in this oppositions, like Jupiter's really out of the way in regards to like this particular aspect, but also out of the way in that Mars can't see Jupiter, so Jupiter can't mediate.
Jupiter can't mediate for anyone.
For nobody.
Jupiter's just talking to the sun.
This is a lovely Thursday we're having. Jupiter, happy Jupiter.
The weather is gorgeous today.
Meanwhile, a whole war is happening with the night sect. Truly a whole war. And with this particular interesting configuration, which I wonder is bolstered a bit with what the moon, how the moon's applying to Mars by trine. But it's very much Mars trying to, it feels maybe Mars trying to prove himself to Saturn, and Venus being like, please put your dick away.
Yes, put your dicks away.
We're in public. Mars people can see you. That's indecent.
Venus is like, you, like, I look bomb right now and you are embarrassing me.
I'm embarrassed.
You're letting this old man get to you? Really?
Yes, this scrupulous man. No, 100%. It's like Venus is like, listen, baby. Listen, who knows power better than Venus, right? But like, baby, both of your peni are out. Okay, Mars, you're below the horizon, and this, at least in this chart, you're below the horizon, so only I can see it, and only I want to see it.
Yes.
Saturn, baby, you're just out too, but we can see you, baby.
We can see you.
We can see, and yeah.
You thought your zipper was up, retrograde, but it's down.
It is not just down; it is off the zipper.
It's off. Your zipper broke, and you didn't even notice. Gather yourselves.
Please listen. And listen, we were talking earlier about Venus saying, show me. And she's like, Mars, you show me. Saturn out.
Yeah.
I'll
Saturn put it away.
Truly, he's like, I'll see you when I'm in Libra. I'll deal with my sugar daddy issues in a minute.
Yes,
but this is not the time, said Venus.
We've been ignoring the elephant in the room here, or maybe it's the cow, the neon cow in the room. Uranus and Taurus at the T-square, at the apex of this this T-square. Yeah, so
it's, to me, I'm so sorry, in the vein of our like indecent exposure analogy, Uranus is like, Uranus really feels to be, you know, at this T-square, the mediator between this struggle, the war in the heavens, so to speak. Uranus, I feel like, is gonna whip out some technicality, some Venusian technicality, and it's like, you know, Saturn, yours is a little ashy, so you clearly lost.
I feel like Uranus is like them, like Mars and Saturn squaring, opposing each other and like facing off. Uranus is Doja Cat in that cow outfit.
Bitch, I'm a cow.
And then there's like a whole, but instead of like singing that song, she just starts like egging on both of them.
Yes.
And like playing really loud music and like just stirring shit up.
Yep.
And just making everything more explosive.
Yes. In the vein of our revolving door thing, it's like the revolving door is spinning and Mars can see Saturn through the revolving door. And Venus is like, baby, let's go. We have a job to do upstairs in our hotel room. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in that like side door that's always by the revolving, because those can get scary and claustrophobic, right? You know, bitch, I'm a cow pops out, right? The mascot from Chick-fil-A pops out. And it's like, what the way I think it's just so distracting, but like, whether or not it's more distracting for Mars or Saturn, I don't know, but I think it's definitely the technicality or the who's gonna win this pissing match. I think is gonna lean toward Mercury, toward Mars, only because Mars is applying to Uranus, and it's really interesting. But no, 100%.
Mars is like gathering from Saturn and just like throwing it into Uranus, and Uranus is gonna blow it up. Yeah, this is explosive. This is really intense. This day and this whole meetup between these three.
100%. And it's also funny just as well because
moon come through and hit it. Yeah.
On the
floor. Oh, this is gonna be loud.
This is gonna be very loud because this
is gonna be, oh my God. Why is July 4th this? I don't like that.
Yeah. This is the fireworks I do not want.
Buy your pets like earplugs, or I don't know, you can't do that, but I just feel
close.
Yeah, it's gonna be. This is loud as fuck.
Yes. So like,
I'm afraid for fires, honestly.
Especially in California. Like I just woof the way. It's gnarly. I think.
I hope it rains. Sorry.
No, truly, same. Just something to sort of mitigate, right? Because the moon, it's interesting because I think Venus is whispering into Mars's ear, like, so this man I kind of barely know. He's virtually a stranger, but I was, I had to get here, and you don't need to ask any questions.
Right.
A man is in my home, and he has no affinity for Leo.
Yes.
So I don't know where he's from. I don't know what sign he belongs to, but I know it's, but I know it's a neighborhood I am unaware of.
And the moon's going in to check. My honored guest, the moon, in its exaltation, is going in to check on the situation, see what's going on. But the moon just like catches Uranus off guard and like sets off the detonator, basically.
It's one of those, those like old comedy sketches where it's like something is going terribly wrong. I'm like, oh, well, thank God, like we spilled all this gasoline everywhere. We're like, thank God there's no match. And then the bumbling idiot comes with like a match on fire. It's like the moon, after the moon's a bumbling idiot, but the moon's coming in through a torch. She's like, ooh, look at these new curlers I got. I just got these new curlers. They're so nice. And they're flame. A flame comes from it too. If I want to do some little guap or whatever, and then she's like, oh, look at all this water on the floor, drops one of the things, and it's
so the July 4th weekend's intense, y'all. More than just your pets, just be safe, safe out there. Be safe out there,
and be so aware of there's a lovely quote that Diana Rose Harper, friend of the pod, says is a lack of safety doesn't mean a presence of violence. And just being aware, we were talking about like Mercury's distinction between that which is solar and that which is diurnal. In this instance, like just being aware of like what doesn't feel safe and what feels violent. And knowing that there is a distinction between those two things, and when those two things merge, be mindful, right? Be aggressive about your care, but also knowing that if you're in a position where you don't feel safe, you don't have to stay. If there's a position where you feel there's violence occurring, you could not have to stay. And so I don't know, keeping that in mind.
And by the time sun sets, you know, the moon is way past, not way past, but is pretty
Fast
much
enough.
cleared
Mhm.
by a good 5 degrees, that square to Mars, which is kind of that final hit, that final aspect in that whole T-square combination. So yeah, by the time fireworks are going off, at least the moon has already passed that square to Mars, which makes me feel a little bit better. At that point, it's
Mhm.
just applying to sextile Neptune, and yeah,
Mhm.
not as scary as the morning. So Saturday night really is, I'm not trying to scare anyone,
I
but
know.
Saturday night is, it's just a really intense configuration with the moon coming in to ping that Mars Saturn opposition, and then, you know, the moon's going to conjunct Uranus and set off that whole T square. So
Absolutely. It's very much giving, you know, that scene from Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, when Gandalf comes and he brings all these fireworks and it's so exciting and the hobbits are all excited. And then Merry and Pippin go into the fireworks thing and they blow off this big dragon thing, right?
oh shit,
It's very much giving that energy
yeah,
of like nothing. We thought it was dangerous because it looked like a damn dragon. We haven't seen those since, you know, The Hobbit.
right.
TM. But you know, Gandalf, arguably Jupiter, arguably Saturn will do their.
I wish I could contribute to that, but I I can't. But I'm just looking at when Venus comes through and hits that, which is July 6th. Venus will come to oppose Saturn, and then I think within like the next 2 days, 3 days, squares Uranus. So yeah, the whole first week and a half of July is kind of this intense fixed T square.
Yeah.
In terms of like how to move through this, um, I think with fixed energy, it's always important to be mindful of where you are holding on too tightly,
Mhm.
where you perhaps are just like stuck in your ways potentially in those areas of your life. And just know that Uranus is saying like, that, fuck your feelings, you know, like it's time for you to let go of this sort of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, Uranus does bring these sort of like curveballs.
Yeah, curveballs, and like especially like this year, right? Like I think of Taurus and again as a fixed sign, and Uranus being involved in that intimately in her house, her being Venus, using those tools and the ways in which we've learned to find stability in unorthodox sort of ways.
Yeah.
And so this particular configuration, right, this T square, is really making me think that this first 2 weeks of July is really going to be about, is really going to be about how can I best integrate this new form of stability that I have come to, whether I want to come to it or not. As things are maybe starting to open up again, as we're starting to lift these rules and strictures these temporary rules and strictures we've imposed. And it's like I was having a conversation with someone, I don't remember whom, but I was saying how I'm so enamored with how my relationship to home, right, Capricorn ruling my fourth, has really changed this whole pandemic, and how I was, you know, just like truly like ascendant ruler in the third, like just go. I was never home. I was traveling all over California for theater contracts. I was teaching at several different schools in 7 different counties that were nowhere close to each other, and this particular moment in our human history has really made me be much more Saturnian about when I stay home, and much more Saturnian about how work takes me away from home, and I need to come back to that starting place. And so anyway, not that that's necessarily involved in this chart in that particular way. I think the Uranus piece in Taurus is really saying, and with this particular configuration, especially with its being Saturn, is saying, how can I integrate this new way of being in the world, new way of integrating myself into the mainland, right? Into whatever, we've all been on our little Zoom islands,
the new normal.
and it's all come together to make another Pangea. How can I take what I learned and use it in a way that's constructive? And I think of a square, and how squares just have that martial energy.
Like, gotta do something about this.
Absolutely. Like there's something, I don't know, there's something about Mars that where Mars's attention is on the unknown, what it's unsure about, and that causes enough of an environment for action and activity and impulse. And so with this particular configuration, I think it's going to give us some action and impulse of like, maybe I don't know how to integrate this new thing I've learned about how I do life now post, not even post panty, the panty's still a real thing, but like how to do life as we're trying to act like the panty didn't happen. But I'm going to integrate what I can, because I don't want that information to go away. And so anywho, those are my immediate thoughts on that picture.
Yeah, I mean, it is like I feel like it's like a force letting go.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, this configuration, and in that it's a forced like reimagining as well as like what things can be once you have a little bit more room.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe once you're not carrying so much.
Yep.
And I think it's going to make a lot of people realize things that they've been carrying that they didn't even realize, like were at the bottom of their knapsack.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%.
It's like, I just got the image of like kind of like backpacking through a place and getting something stolen off of your backpack, and then being like, fuck, I guess I didn't even need that anyway.
Truly.
You know,
there's so like for any listeners in
which hurts at first,
of course,
which you're like, fuck,
yep,
I was just violated, you know,
but you're like, I need that.
Yeah. And yes. Like, maybe I don't.
There's if you ever go to Barcelona for whatever reason, the things that you'll learn very quickly is that there's a lot of it's just like any tourist area. It's easy to get things stolen from you, and so it's like if you ever carry something on your person, make sure it's something you know you don't need, because it might float away and disappear as you're leaving the subway. And I just, that story reminded me of, I had a book, and every time I go to Europe, anywhere in Europe, I have a note so I can take notes of the streets because I get lost very easily. And I looked out of my bag after getting off the subway, and I was like, oh no, my thing got lost. And I was like kind of panicked about it a little bit because I was in an area I didn't know. And then I sat down and I was like, okay, well, no, I have a good sense of direction. I can find myself back. And I found some of the coolest, hottest spots, and they all live on a Google map that I pinned, and I have those now forever. And so how cool that like lost sucks, but lost is not a final destination.
Right. I wanted to pull up the Cancer new moon chart, which we also somehow skipped over. This is what happens with Mercury and Sagittarius. So it's never straight in one direction. It's always taking U-turns and pivots and going around the corner because you saw something cool.
Absolutely.
And,
the roundabouts.
So anyway, July 9th at 6:16 p.m. It's a Friday night. Pacific time, we get a Cancer new moon at 18 degrees 1 minute of Cancer. I love this.
It's a really beautiful new moon, and I think it's really beautiful because anything that might harm it can't see it.
Yes, exactly.
And Jupiter is sees what's happening there and is blessing that union, so to speak. And so there is this really I don't know, for whatever reason, it's giving me like sans the end of this song. It's giving me Kiss the Girl from Little Mermaid. And it's just like, let this new thing emerge and bloom. And it's Jupiter, I think, is adding to the ambiance of this particular new moon. So it's quite lovely.
Yeah. So what Eli meant when he said nothing that can harm it can see it. This Cancer new moon's happening in Cancer, and the malefics, Mars and Saturn, are in Aquarius and Leo, and don't have an aspect basically to the moon, so they're not really involved in this configuration. Really the only planets involved are Jupiter and Neptune, and Jupiter just has that sign-based trine, whereas the new moon, the sun and the moon, are both sort of applying to this trine with Neptune, and it's just like nice and wet and juicy, and it feels very fertile. It's like after we get past these, after Mars and Venus get past their opposition with Saturn and their square with Uranus, I really like July after that.
It's going to be quite lovely, I think.
So let's look at we kind of got past the Venus Mars conjunction. We get to that first quarter moon, and basically, we're just looking at Venus and the sun sort of like making their way out of the signs that they're in. Nothing really exciting happens until until we get to, let's see, Venus's ingress into Virgo. So Venus descends into fall on July 21st. And yeah,
while opposing Jupiter as
well,
well.
yeah, as soon as it enters, it opposes Jupiter. The moon is also like sending some good vibes their way as well. I guess it doesn't, it already enters Capricorn before Venus enters, but yeah, there's this like this blessing from Jupiter as Venus like enters whatever, like you can call it a cave, a ditch, whatever, of Virgo.
Yes, it's so funny.
It's like
Venus,
a final, like a wave goodbye.
Truly, it's like okay, bye.
Jupiter's like, it'll be okay.
Truly,
it's just, I know, thanks.
Truly, and
at
then,
least I have triplicity.
Yeah, that part. Yep, exactly. And the moon, additionally with that, as Venus is traversing through Virgo, I think is going to add again a steadiness and or maybe a mindfulness of how permissible and allowable we're being with the impact of our actions and of the Venusian itself, right? I think that Venus can Venus anywhere. I don't think I truly can't believe there's a place where Venus can't Venus. I think Venus in Virgo, I think Venus is used to maybe having a lightness, which might be the moist piece to her cold and moist temperament. But there's something about Venus that is accustomed to having a lightness similar to Mercury, and how it's just like high stakes, low stakes. I'm just doing Venus, right? But then when she's in Virgo, it becomes cold and dry, not cold and dry like mean and unfeeling, but cold like receptive and absorbing, and dry like, oh, everything I take in I have to do something with.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's an impossible place for Venus, but I think it's like, oh, everything that has value now needs my attention.
Yes.
I have to grow something with that.
I love that. Everything that has value now needs my attention, because yeah, I mean, the way Demetra George once described Venus in Virgo is like, Mercury rules Virgo. So it's like Venus just wants to like make love and, like chill out and, enjoy things. But in Virgo, Mercury's like, no, honey, you have a to-do list. You have shit to do. Demetra didn't say that exactly. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, it's sort of like Venus is like a little too obsessed with making things perfect, basically. It just reminds me of Venus or Kim Kardashian. Always, she's just such a quintessential Venus and Virgo figure to me, because it's overdoing, and that's what planets in fall tend to do. They have to sort of push themselves to an extreme in order to feel seen or noticed, or so they'll oscillate between extremes. And I think with Venus and Virgo, I don't know, you'll hear some astrologers say like, yeah, they don't put a lot into their appearance, and it's like,
which ones of you?
Exactly.
I'm thinking of a dear friend of mine with Venus and Virgo and Mars there as well, and Mercury.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's the most Venusian, beautiful. Exactly. Like everything I've learned about how to be mindful of the impact of your beauty and the impact of that I've learned from this person. And this person has a very loud Venus and Virgo.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what Virgo.
No, that's the thing. It's like it's always extreme. And yeah, we can talk about the fact that Venus has triplicity in Virgo, in earth signs and day charts. Also has quite a bit of degrees worth of term rulership in Virgo, and it also has the whole second decan of Virgo is Venus rule,
and those two places correspond. So like if you are someone who is excited by the essential dignity scoring, for example, she's racking up hella points if she's in that place,
in that kind of middle decan. There's like, it's almost like the first 7 degrees of the middle decan, it looks like.
Yep. And so she has in that estimation, I'm not going to count the numbers, like I don't count in public or on camera because it's scary business, but that Venus, while she's there, is getting points as a triplicity ruler, points as a bound ruler, and points as a decan ruler. And so she it's not that she can't do Venus there, like I said, it's that she is mindful. I don't know, there's I'm forgetting, I think it was Thrasyllus, I believe, that said that he attributed these really interesting action verbs to each of the signs, and to Virgo and Pisces, he gave Virgo destabilization and Pisces stabilization. And what's interesting about that
makes
is that
sense.
Virgo, we think of Virgo and the intestines and breaking things down. We often, like, oh, that's why Virgos are anxious people and da-da-da. But it's like, no, that when Venus is in Virgo, she breaks everything down. She's, oh, this one thing might be something that could prevent the beauty and the reconciliation and the unification. And so it needs my attention.
Yes.
And as soon as it gets my attention, I can craft it and I can build with it and I can nourish it in the way that I can in earth signs. She brings it back together and then it can do its thing. I have I have a friend who every time I have something in my house that does not work, whether it be a cabinet or an electronic device or whatever, they all sigh when she enters the room because they know she's there and she will fix them and make them beautiful. And I find, my conjecture to Venus and Virgos and take care of themselves is that it's my Venus and Virgo friends who say, baby, how did you not know this could do this? Baby, let me teach me.
It's because they're down in the dirt. They'll take things apart from because they have to.
Yep, they have to. And it's how but my last Venus and Virgo shout out, gas up, praise is this, that I've never met a Venus in Virgo that does not have such an intimate way of being able to hold space having an intimate way of recognizing the Venusian and honoring it. And I think sometimes we can lose touch with what is Venusian, which is to say, that which holds our world together, that which brings us great pleasure and joy, which I think are is the metric for freedom, right? And that Venus and Virgo, those who have that placement, have such a beautiful way of honoring that and recognizing it in the moment in a way that, like, my fire Venus is like, oh, here today, gone tomorrow. I do that in a different way, but it's a beautiful.
But a couple things about Venus and Virgo, though, that make it difficult. Because yes, we can gas off this placement forever, but it is a difficult. I mean, planets in fall,
absolutely,
debilitated planets can be difficult, and I think the issue that I see a lot with people with Venus and Virgo is finding it really difficult to just be in Venus, to just tap into pleasure unapologetically.
Absolutely. And like to that, I also would like to add, there is a occupation with maybe this is the earth piece of taking in any particular like insular culture or like mainland culture sort of thing on what the rules of aesthetics are and what the rules or the stricture and the boundary and the fence and the pen in which beauty can occur and run wild and roam free. And so I think it's like, I'm aware of that, right? But what is Picasso's quote? Break the rules like an artist, right? And so Virgo is like, oh, I'm aware that there's standards and there's structure and there's a formula for beauty. There's a formula for the true, the good, and the beautiful. But I know that thing over there that adheres to none of these rules is beautiful and I can do it. But it's so hard.
It's so hard to break out of that. And then there's also, again, like going to extremes. I think that with the planet in fall, again, it's like it has to try extra hard to get noticed and to feel respected and accepted. And I find that a lot of people with Venus and Virgo feel like they have so much to give, but it's never like matched. It's never, no one's ever meeting them where they're at. And then the flip side of that is often kind of being like, I have to do so much to show you how amazing I am. And almost going overboard often with like doing like kind of performing Venus. And people are like, you didn't have to do all this for me. I never asked for all of this. You know what I mean? Or
I think it's like, there's a twofold, like if we just like look at the myth of how Venus came into the world, this violent strife, terrible, testicles were cut off and they fell into the ocean and the ocean swirled and foamed and gagged and cried out. And then out of this struggle, we get beauty, grace, and pleasure spilling to the world. And so with Virgo, I think, or with Venus in Virgo in particular, I think what's tricky about it is I think the cold piece allows for being able to intake all of the things, and then the breaking it down once it gets in there allows to identify what something isn't beautiful. But I think what can be tricky with Venus and Virgo, what makes it complicated, is that it's as much as it's aware that that one thing right there needs adjusting so it all can adhere to Venus, I think it's also aware of the strife and the difficulty and whatnot, and so it can that fixation can occur. It's an interesting sort of parallel, but to your point, Venus being in fall, right, walks into Virgo, the celestial palace, and it's like, okay, I'm supposed to unify and reconcile, for example, and the tools I have in here are tools of measurement, and they're tools of quantification, and they're tools of quantity, not quality. But then that's not to say that Virgo people aren't good about quality, because they are, but it's like Mercury. But it's like, how do I be the Lord of commerce and the Lord of whatever? How do I use the not the rules, but the sort of the brass tacks to bring something Venusian out? And that's hard. It's hard. That's really hard. So it's not to say
it's hard, because especially when you're like so aware of the details.
Yep.
You're so aware of the details in Virgo.
And it's
hard for benefic.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, because it's like everything in Earth, it becomes responsible for it, right? I believe was it Mark Jones? No, who was it? Who gave the talk on Eros and Psyche and Venus and
Jason Holly.
Yes, it was Jason Holly. And that talk, I remember finishing that talk and weeping. I just wept and wept, because it's like, oh, everything in Earth has a responsibility. Like it assumes its responsibility, and it will do something with that thing, whether it wants to do something with that thing or not. And so I think that's the trick of Venus and Virgo, is that everything that she intakes, she has to do something with.
Because it's Earth, it's physical, it's manifest. You can't hide it. It's not like an idea that can flow away in the wind.
Exactly. And it's not like water where you can just put it in the trenches.
Yeah, right? Or it can dissolve.
Exactly. It's when things go into when Venus draws things into Virgo, it's like, oh, this isn't salvageable. This isn't nice. This isn't easy. And I have to do something with that. I
have to work.
And I think that's where
Don't ask the Empress to work.
And I think that's where it can get tricky personally. But I'm biased toward Venus.
So let's talk a little bit about what else is happening at the end of this month. Venus is moving through Virgo. And what I will say, if you're think about what houses Venus rules in your chart, because just practically speaking, the Taurus and Libra houses, their ruler is going into fall. So you might see a dip in those areas of your life for the time that Venus is in Virgo. If your second house is ruled by Venus, that could look like, finances taking a dip for a bit. Things like that. If it's, your first house, you might feel potentially, you might be like, I don't really feel great about how I look right now. And that's not, there's no value judgments on Venus and Virgos and their looks or anything, but it's just the practical nature of a planet entering its fall in place.
Absolutely.
So I just want to name that.
Of course.
And then, on the 28th of the month, July 28th, we get, Jupiter re-entering Aquarius.
Yummy.
And Mars at the same time, as soon as Jupiter re-enters, Mars forms this opposition to Jupiter. So at 29 degrees Aquarius and 29 degrees of Leo, which is Regulus, you get this Jupiter-Mars opposition. That's interesting.
It is really interesting, because it's this
it sucks for Jupiter. I mean, it's like Jupiter is at home, feeling nice, and it's like, okay, gotta finish up some shit in Aquarius before I can come back and party in Pisces. And then it's as soon as it re-enters, it it's already Saturn's there, so it's has to room with Saturn again for the rest of the year. But as soon as it enters, Mars is fucking right there throwing the evil eye its way.
100%. It's like Jupiter, Jupiter, there's a I believe it's a lot of siblings. Alcabisi says that, or he relates Jupiter and Saturn as brothers. Saturn clearly being the older brother, Jupiter being the younger. So it's like younger brothers going into older brother's house, and it's probably to help move furniture or move, move whatever. And then as soon as he gets there, it's the loud, upstairs neighbor being like, "Hey, I see you down there. You're too loud. You're too big. You're too fun.
I can take you.
I can take you." But it's like, have you guys ever in a situation where like, where someone's like, "I will fight you," right? It's like Mars screaming in Leo, like, whoa, like, why? It's like, you just had such a lovely time. It's like, we earlier were talking about like, that Venus applying to Mars and that separation, Mars being asleep. He woke up and he's mad because Venus isn't there anymore.
And now the sun is there, so it feels extra bold because it's like, I got everything I need. I can fight you. My dad's here. He's gonna fight you. My little brother Mercury is here. They're gonna fight you.
It's just emboldened 100%.
So bold.
And so it's like, I mean, in regards to this particular opposition, it's really what's interesting to me is that it feels like Mars sees Jupiter. It's speaking to what it thinks, how it perceives Jupiter doing its work in Aquarius. And then it's telling Jupiter, you need to be like, Jupiter, you're so mindful of what's likely and what's possible and what can happen, right? I think maybe, earlier I said Saturn says no, but means yes. I'm curious about Jupiter maybe says yes, but means no. And Mars is, looking at Jupiter and saying, you're so likely about what's possible. You're not being mindful of what you're not aware of,
and what's right in front of you sometimes,
and what's like you're so forward thinking, maybe you're so toxically positive, maybe, that you're not aware of the immediate dangers. You're not aware of the ways in which critique and negativity can be the very tools you need to find the alternative to a situation. And so Mars is saying, Jupiter, be negative. Jupiter, look at the system around you and whether or not that system around you is helping you in the support that you need, right? I'm saying support, particularly because Jupiter has triplicity in Aquarius. And it's like, is your older brother's house the only option of support for you?
Right.
Baby, what about Libra? What about the places? And so it's this particular opposition feels very much like similar to that other opposition we were talking about, not opposition, the other transit we've tried about so many, but this particular transit seems to, like, in a very aggressive way, say, Jupiter, be mindful of idealizing, be mindful of, again, it's a night planet and a day planet having a terse conversation. And so it very much feels like being like I don't know, I'm thinking of Game of Thrones, the night is dark and full of terrors, and Jupiter, you have to be mindful of what those are. They don't just go away because the sun turned, the sun came out and the sun, turned on.
The terrors are still there, and they'll be there at sunset.
And they'll be there to gather your ass. So
it is just like a heavy dose of reality, Jupiter re-entering Aquarius and then immediately receiving that, to me it feels like BB gun, like Mars just like shooting BB guns, like Jesus Christ, like just like a smack of heavy dose of reality.
It's very much giving, like, what's that one? I fuck with you. It's very much giving that energy, Mars to Jupiter.
So that's kind of how we close out the month.
Happy note.
Well, no, so on the 29th, Mars will enter Virgo.
Will officially not be able to see Jupiter, so Jupiter will be able to rest a little bit.
And I love Mars in Virgo.
Me too.
It's very my keyword for Mars in Virgo is surgical precision. It's just like has a lot of energy to like get into the details and like in a very aggressive way.
Well, it's like Mars in Virgo,
or get critical in a very aggressive way.
Mars in Virgo has a really awesome way of, like, I don't know, we talk about like Mars in Aries being like this firecracker and super hot and like, the Minuteman, right? It's burning off and he's like, oh, I'm tired. I have enough energy for the spark, not enough energy to hold the flame. That's Leo, right? Lighting the candle might be Jupiter, not Jupiter, Sagittarius, right? But when Mars is in Aries, he gets tuckered out, right? When Mars is in Scorpio, because it's water and it's night, he's tempered, and so he can do more. Well, even though Virgo is not Capricorn and it's not Taurus, Virgo is still earth. And so I think Mars's nature that's generally like hot and bothered, right, is tempered here.
Cool
and
down.
it's given precision, but mercurial precision, brass tacks precision, right? It can be very nickel and dimey energy, and in a way that's like I took everyone's order. You all said one bill. Not enough money is here. Who's gonna die? It's very intense.
It is.
Martial, straight to the point.
Straight to the point.
Energy.
I love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, Venus being there helps temper it. Like cool Mars down too, just to be very useful and very efficient. Yeah. So then we basically, that's how we end the month on the 31st of the month. We are entering into Cazimi, which goes exact on the 1st of August, I believe. So yeah, we're entering into this Mercury Sun Cazimi. I believe this would be the superior Cazimi, right? Because it's inferior when it's retrograde, right? So yeah, this is
it's a fast Mercury.
It's a very fast moving Mercury. And yeah, it's at 9 degrees. It happens at 9 degrees of Leo. I love a superior conjunction, a superior Cazimi, because it's very to me, it feels it's Mercury like on the other side. So superior means Mercury is on the other side of the sun. We wouldn't be able to see the conjunction happening from our perspective on Earth. Because yeah, Mercury is on the other side of the sun. Whereas when Mercury is retrograde in Cazimi, it's on the inside of the sun. We could see it. It's inferior conjunction. So the superior one is like Mercury, like kind of going out there, like, you know, it's far away. It's sort of gathering information from beyond. And it's also this like kind of secret, you know, conversation with the sun, where we don't really like they're behind the hidden, you know, it's happening behind hidden doors. Like we don't really get to like witness, but it feels very felt.
Absolutely. It's very much giving, out of curiosity, what are the bounds of this Mercury? I'm curious.
Venus.
Oh, okay. It's very much giving spectacle versus substance. Like I think about the spectacle of lights. Like I think about like how like I know all my lighting designer friends are like, it's so weird that like people are like becoming mini like lighting designers with smart lights now. And the way that people became photographers when we got Instagram.
And professional choreographers with TikTok.
Exactly that part. Yeah. As a dancer and professional dancer and choreographer, I'm like, interesting. A choice was made. But with this particular configuration, it's very much feeling the marriage or the merge of spectacle and substance when it works well, right? Have you ever seen something that's so much spectacle? Or a dear friend of mine says flash and trash, right? When you go and see something and it's just like so quickly done together, and it was meant to be so like to wow you, but you're nothing more than that. And then like but sometimes a piece can have so much substance, so much meat that it's like, oh, but I need the spectacle to keep me moving through it, right? Too much substance, I think, stops the momentum that moves you through it, and too much spectacle means that once you arrive, you tucker out, right? And so what's beautiful about this particular configuration, I think, especially in Leo of all places, is that it's a perfect merging of the spectacle that is the solar, the spectacle that is the spectacle of perception and awareness, but then the substance of articulation and the substance of language. And so what a beautiful sort of aspect to wrap up the month with, and condition in comparison to the Mercury we were first dealing with in the beginning, because it's this Mercury and Sun that are like not just on the same page and on the same team, but they're working together, right? In a way that feels both inventive but also impactful. So that's very nice. That's very, very nice.
That's beautiful. And yeah, just wanted to look at the exact conjunction, which happens at, looks like 7:06 a.m. Pacific time at 9 degrees 32 minutes of Leo, and it's happening at sunrise, which is beautiful. And yeah, I mean, it does feel like a show, you know, at like this conjunction happening at sunrise. I love that this is how we close out the month, especially this is happening sunrise on August 1st. So we're a little ahead of ourselves, but yeah. And yeah, I'm excited about this this cazimi.
Yes, it's
But
gonna.
we haven't talked about the opposition to Saturn.
Well, see, I was gonna say the opposition is occurring, but again, I think all of the planets involved have skin in the game. And if I might be misquoting this, so forgive me if I am, but there is a mutual reception by triplicity happening with oh no, it's not, ignore me, just kidding. No,
Okay.
yes, a mutual reception between
the Sun in Leo and
Saturn
and Jupiter. Like they're all are in the day sect planets are all in triplicity.
Yep. I believe it's a medieval concept, I believe, to extend mutual reception beyond just domicile rulership.
Okay.
And so I think in
That's
regards
cool.
to this particular opposition, don't quote me on that, I may have made that up. But that particular
they all have triplicity, even looking at the moon.
Oh wow,
and
yeah.
Venus and Mars.
Yep,
and
everyone is rejoicing by sect in some way. Yeah. Yep. It's really, really interesting. Oh yeah. Wow. Astrology.
We're such nerds.
Yeah, we really are, truly. Not us now counting if it's likely rising, whatever. But with this particular opposition and that how I know this very much feels in regards to like spectacle and substance, right? That's happening, like this perfect show that's happening in the first in Leo, right? Like a perfect show can't happen without a perfect and seamless stage crew.
I was gonna say production, produce, yeah,
but like the people behind the scenes, and like if you've it's a weird sort of out of body experience, being a performer is like when you're on stage and you're doing your show, and then you look up into the balcony and you can see the screen or the booth with a stage manager and the technicians are calling cues from below.
Yeah.
And when you make eye contact with them, and it's just so weird to be seen.
Yes.
And then be seen
from beyond the curtain.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then but then also it's like a 3-part knowing, like the knowing that it's happening with you and your audience and the suspension of belief, the knowing that we're both working together in very different ways to do the same thing, and then the knowing that's occurring in this imaginary world you've created with people on the stage. Wow. And so it very much feels like that the Sun and Mercury both are in this intimate knowing with each other of this very visible show they have to do with full of meaty substance and spectacles, a perfect show, one might say. But then also this opposition from Saturn saying, but yes, there is this very technical, meaty, precise aspect to it, and you have to be mindful of that. One thing they say, one thing we say in theater, dance as well, is like find your zip code, find your light. If you're on the wrong mark, that light's not going to hit you. Right. If you're in the wrong spot, if you're not where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, something will happen. And that opposition feels like that, particularly to me.
Wow. Yeah. This opposition is so meaty. I mean, I don't even want to talk about Uranus here because this is so tight. It's so tight at the cazimi. Like it is basically a cazimi. Like it feels so much to me like Mercury and the Sun sort of in this conversation, or maybe we can just say in sync if we're going to go with the show, like they are debuting, they're perfectly in sync, they're on their marks, and they know their stage manager is watching. They feel the presence of Saturn's gaze coming from, in the back, like the back row, basically.
Absolutely.
And even if they can't see it, they feel it. They know that it's like as soon as they're done with this, they're both applying to oppose Saturn. So they both have to have that conversation with Saturn, who's going to review their performance afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, it's something people don't know, or most people don't know, is that in addition to like having a visual eye on the booth that a stage manager has, 99.9% of the time, unless the theater's super old, there's also a visual from the sky. So the rigging on stage, where like all of the lights and the curtains and everything else are, there's several cameras. So they have and it's recorded. It's put on, so they can see what's happening.
So diurnal.
Truly, so it's panopticon. Michel Foucault would be just rolling in his grave, right? In a good way. But they have a visual of the bird's eye view, which feels so poignant for this particular configuration. But there's a bird's eye view, so that if something goes wrong, it literally can precisely see how it happened. Wow. And Saturn, it feels very much like that in this particular thing, that it's like I'm watching the show from every vantage point and asking that we're mindful of our safety and that you are where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there.
Love it. Yeah, this is, I mean, if you're looking at your chart, look at where this Leo Aquarius axis is. We have the rulers of both of these signs in their own signs in this opposition. And yeah, it feels, both are well-resourced. Yep. And so it's almost like you're in this moment of, it's like a true opposition, a true face-off where like both sort of have a lot to, like they're both coming with a lot, neither are really, debilitate it in any way. It's just that Saturn's retrograde. That's the only thing. But I've realized I did forget one other important configuration where this full moon on July 23rd.
Oh yeah,
we're going
we're talking about the new moon.
we're so
Mercury
and Sag right now.
Truly.
Okay, so let's close out by talking about this this full moon. I don't know, what is there to say? It's just like
I love it for two reasons. I'm gonna kind of isolate some things just for a bit. I love.
Just full moon happens on July 23rd, Friday, July 23rd, 7:36 p.m. Pacific. All right, I had to say that.
Yes, of course. I love this for two reasons. One, the moon in particular. So there's this condition where when the moon is in opposition to the sun, she's under the bonds. So she's clink clink. She's on lockdown, right? And in Aquarius, she's applying to Saturn as well as being in lockdown in this clink clink. As soon as she leaves Saturn, in terms of application, the next thing that becomes of extreme importance is who's she connecting to next, who's she trading to her lunch with, who's she trading with her lunch with next.
Gathering that light from that full moon, and who is she passing it to next?
And she's playing hot potato with Jupiter. And so like while this particular opposition and then her first application being to Saturn, I'm sure will not be without its uncomfortableness. She's going to take all of that structure and revelation that only Saturn can provide and give it to Jupiter before Jupiter dips back into Aquarius. So it very much feels.
I wonder if Jupiter. I mean, I don't know if she gets there before Jupiter. Yes, she does. Okay, cool.
Dips in. So it's like
that final.
It's like right before that happens, it's like she's leaving Saturn. Before we were talking about Jupiter, I have to go and help the older brother, but maybe not knowing exactly what he's going to help with. And the moon sneaks into Jupiter and says, "Hey, okay, let me tell you what your big brother's going to do.
Yeah.
This, and this." Know that there's no glue, there's no this, there's no that. Again, I'm thinking of the way in which Saturn says no, which reveals a yes, right? I think she's going to provide Jupiter. We were talking about that one configuration where it was like Jupiter, be mindful of what's in front of you, be mindful of idealizing. She's going to provide, the moon will provide Jupiter with the tools necessary to be mindful of both.
I love that.
And I think that's something that's going to be really lovely with this particular full moon.
That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, we have that full moon happening on the 23rd. 2 days later, the moon has a final conjunction with Jupiter in Pisces until next year, basically. And then a couple of days later, on the 28th, Jupiter re-enters Aquarius. So the moon meeting up with Jupiter on the 25th is just what EY was just describing, this like moon kind of giving the intel to Jupiter before in Pisces, and before Jupiter re-enters Aquarius. And so maybe Jupiter is a little bit prepared.
For what has to happen. Before it goes into, I said what has to happen, like it's this big, like the Christ before the cross, I
mean, kind of. But and then we close out the month with
my mom's birthday.
Your mom's birthday. And both Venus and Mars in Virgo. Sorry,
that was for me. That Virgo's my 12.
We have the Mercury Cazimi and Jupiter back in Aquarius. Final thoughts about July?
I think July is going to be a really interesting back and forth between this idea of well, first, before I say that, we have come into, like, with the vaccines, with them saying we can have more access, and then WHO just WHO releasing saying, like, if you're vaccinated, please wear masks and things, right? That we're starting to slowly but surely, it's a month that I think is going to highlight how we integrate this new knowing we've come into. We've now have to navigate and work with and grieve with and love with and be in relationship with. It's going to really be a month about how do I integrate these new things I learned into this new new system
Mhm.
in a way that's going to look like a little bit of the old, right? A little bit of what it was like before the pandemic, and a little bit of the new and what it looks like before. And so
Mhm.
it's going to be a sort of how do I reckon with the wreck
Yeah.
of all of this old,
Yeah.
and either A, you know, build something new and become, or like unbecome and just be driftwood and float away,
Right.
which is also fine.
Yeah, I feel like the first 2 weeks, especially, like it feels like July is an adjustment month because June we had the eclipses,
Mhm.
and it feels like the dust is settling. Mercury is just, you know, starting to pick up steam at the beginning of the month. And so it feels like, you know, growing pains, adjustment energy, where you're watching the dust settle and you're trying to figure out, you know, where things are going to land before taking action and
Yep.
moving forward.
Absolutely.
And I think by the time that Mars runs through that T square with Saturn and Uranus and Venus gets there, it's like that is action oriented. That's
Yep.
things happening. The second half of the month to me seems like, you know, the cool down from that basically. And I'm excited about the Venus Mars conjunction personally.
I think it's going to be so great.
So
It's
hot.
happening in my 11th.
Yeah, it's that one's fun. And then I'm excited for the Cazimi, even though it's opposite Saturn. I feel like it's I don't know, that just feels like, again, things happen. These hard aspects kind of speak to things happening.
Yep.
And yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see.
We're excited.
This is like, I don't like to forecast, so this is kind of a vulnerable space for me to do this, but I'm so happy to do it with you.
I'm so happy to do it with you.
So
and it's, you know, forecasting to me is so like falls into, you know, like tricky ethical waters of like
what do you say? How do you say it? How much do you say?
And like, just because like I don't know, there's so many different means by which you can glean useful information from a chart. And so how do I ensure that this is the most useful information possible?
Yeah.
And, you know, also just having that really like benefic tendency of wanting to tell everyone like everything's good, everything's gonna be great. And when it's bad, being like, oh, now I'm leading to that Scorpio stuff of like everything's, you know, Scorpio intense, you know, whatever.
Yeah, so it's hard to balance sometimes, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Yes. We enjoyed doing it. If you like it, let us know. Follow at the Strology Show on Instagram and you know, comment on the post and let us know what you think.
Please.
Rate, review, all that shit.
All that jazz.
Shit. Thank you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. It's been a long episode.
Listen, but I hope I'm sure it's been fun. I'm sure you've been dealing with two Jupiterian people.
Yeah,
so
hopefully you enjoy.
Yeah, so I can't imagine it was too grueling. Despite how malefic we are.
And we'll see you again soon. I don't know what the next episode's going to be, but hopefully you enjoyed this surprise.
Yes, this will tide you over. I assure you.